It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Welcome to the Hockey Writers Grindline. I am your host, Matthew Zator, and we've got a full locker room today. We got Devin Little, Tony Wolak, Delaney Reimer, all with us on this episode. Thanks everyone for joining, and we're having fun. I mean, the season is over, but we got the draft to look forward to. Got the draft lottery to look forward to. So, Tony, we'll start with you. How's it going?
It's going well. It's Friday night. I'm gonna probably go to bed after this is done, and it's the weekend. I can't wait to wake up early with an 8-month-old. Let's go.
Yeah, fun times. And also, Devin, how's it going?
It is going good. Sad that the season's over. Happy that means we get to start running wild with all their ideas of what the offseason may have in store. And of course, excited for playoff hockey. It's the best time of year when it comes to being a hockey fan. So, excited to be here with all three of you.
Yeah, it'd be much more fun if the Detroit Red Wings were in the playoffs. But hockey is fun nonetheless. There's going to be lots of fun hockey coming up. And finally, Delaney Reimer is also with us. How's it going?
Pretty good. Excited to watch some postseason hockey, both ECHL and NHL level. Walleye are doing good still, so at least there's that.
Yeah, well, there's some stuff to watch. So see how Sebastian Costa does. All right. Well, on that note, let's get to our one good, one bad, as we always start our show out. We'll start with you, Tony. What's a good and a bad from the past week?
All right. Well, for good, the Red Wings team defense improved year over year under Derek Lalonde. Bad, the team offense declined year over year. And if I may tease an article coming out, there's more info on that coming out on Monday, where I'll kind of give a little bit more detail to how the offensive numbers aren't, nearly as good as last year, and but the defense did improve. So, win some, you lose some.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit about that. I just spoiled my quick fire. All right, we'll keep going. Devin, a good and a bad for the past week.
What'd you say? What was that?
I didn't say anything.
Yeah. My one good and bad. I can kind of lump this together. Obviously the Wings are done. Tonight the Griffins are playing their home finale. Obviously I'm not there, but sad that they're not making the playoffs either. But you got Carter Meza there. Edvinsson's playing there, so among others, of course. So excited that some of those young guys, especially Edvinsson, because he was part of the last game in Detroit, they get to show their appreciation to the fans in Grand Rapids, just like they did in Detroit. So like I said, sad that they're not making the playoffs, but all things considered, I got to see a lot of games this season. I liked what I saw on an individual basis for certain players. I'm looking forward to next season already, especially when it comes to my hometown Griffins.
Yeah, the Griffins are going to have a fun team, I think. Carter Meza, full season for him, and he looked really good at the end of the season too. So it's going to be fun to see a full season from him, and possibly call-ups to Detroit as well. So, and Delaney, finishing off with you, a good and a bad.
My one good is that Amadeus Lombardi just got his first pro point in the game tonight.
Hey.
It's an assist on a goal from Taro Hiros, so that's kind of fun. Love to see that. First pro game, first pro point. One bad is that it's really hot out all of a sudden. I don't know what to do.
Amen.
Way too hot, way too fast.
Yeah, I can't say so. In the West here, we got, it's getting warmer, but it's not really warm. Getting some sun instead of some rain. So. All right. Well, I'll finish it off. A good is, I mean, I liked how the Red Wings played most of the season. I think they were really good a lot of the time. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs, but they showed improvement throughout the year, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, you can't ask for more than that. And see some individuals that perform really high at a high level, or the rookies advancing. Simon Edvinsson looking like an NHL defenseman was a big thing for me as well. So the future's bright, and that's a good. Bad is season's over, and we won't be able to watch the Detroit Red Wings anymore until next season. Same thing for my Vancouver Canucks. I won't be able to watch. I mean, that's not fun when you have to go through another 3 months without watching your team. So, and that's with all the teams that didn't make the playoffs. Fan bases are cheering for other teams, unfortunately. And some just say, forget it. I'm not going to watch the playoffs and just wait until next season. So that's a bad for me, just because, I mean, you're not going to be able to watch the team that you usually follow throughout the year. So, all right, well, let's get into the show and start with our first topic and talking about the goaltenders. And, the Red Wings had, most part, Ville Husso had a pretty good season. Started off really hot. Everyone thought, oh, he's the savior. I mean, he's great. I mean, his numbers were ridiculous at the beginning of the season, Vezina Trophy-like, but obviously fell off. Ended the season with a 3.11 goals against average and an 896 save percentage. Not great. Finished with the winning record, though, 26, 22, and 7. With 4 shutouts. So, I mean, those 4 shutouts, I believe, came at the beginning of the season when he was on that big hot streak. So let's start there and start with you, Devin, on this. What do you think of Husso's play this season? Those stats that I read out there, and just overall.
Husso's an interesting one for me. I think that, especially in the first half of the season, you can make a really strong argument that he was the team's MVP. And I think that even, you look at the season as a whole, he's very much a key factor in most of their wins. Nedeljkovic and Hellberg combined for 12 wins, or for 9. They combined for 9 wins, which is almost a third of what Husso had. So if the Red Wings were winning games more often than not, it was because Husso wasn't that. But then on the other end of the argument here, Husso is the first Red Wings starting goaltender to post a save percentage below 900 since Chris Osgood during the 2008-09 season. That's a long time ago. And that 2008-09 season, they made the Stanley Cup final. So that obviously was a different team and a different era and different expectations and all that good stuff. Now, of course, scoring is up in the league this year. I think that plays a big factor in Husso's numbers not looking that great. But I also think that just kind of shows that, just like Nedeljkovic last season, Husso was an unproven starter, young starter, who I think at times showed that the heavy workload was maybe a bit much for him. I think it really hurt him to not have a steady backup this season, just like it hurt Nedeljkovic last season. And I also think that it hurt him to be so heavily relied upon. Obviously, goalies kind of are in a tough position because every team has to rely on their goalie, whether it's fair or not. And I think that, the Vasilevskys, Shesterkins, those type of guys, they're elite and top tier for a reason. You can rely on them, and it doesn't matter what night you need them to, they will show up. Husso's not at that tier. And I don't think anybody expected him to be at that tier. But I think that at times we really saw that, Husso, as good as he is, he's not Vasilevsky, So I think that all in all, I'm encouraged by what I saw. I think it's very good that they have him signed for another 2 years. I think he'll come back invigorated and ready to, grab the bull by the horns again next season. But I also think that his dip in the second half is a clear sign that not only do the Red Wings need to find some stability to go along with him, but also, just keep an eye on him going to next season. Everybody was really excited about Nedeljkovic heading into this season because he looked promising last season, and we know how that unfolded. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Husso next season, but I think I have a little bit of healthy skepticism that, he's going to show up next season and just be the bona fide starter. I think that it's going to help him a lot to have somebody that can push him in that crease next season.
Yeah, I think they need a solid 1A, 1B. And I mean, that looked like that could have happened this year. I know we talked about it, in one of the first episodes, talking that Nedeljkovic and him could be a 1A, 1B type tandem. Obviously, it didn't end up that way, but I think that's what they need. So, Tony, over to you. What do you think about Husso's play this season and potentially going into next season here too?
I mean, overall, I think I'm on the same page as Devin there. Husso was adequate this season. It was his first year as like the go-to guy. And just to kind of put things in perspective, his 56 games played and 3,220 minutes played were both career highs at all levels. The previous workload high for him was 42 games and a little over 2,400 minutes. So that's a 33% more games and 32% more minutes than he's ever played in one season. So I think that played into it. The Red Wings just didn't have reliable backups for him. Next season, I do think he'll be a little better, especially if the Red Wings go out and get someone to do a 50-50 or a 60-40 timeshare with Husso. I'm not sure if it's going to be Nedeljkovic or Hellberg, but still, he's only 28. He has plenty of good years ahead of him. And he's, like Devin said, under contract for 2 more years. Some nights he just didn't have it. He wasn't tracking the puck well. And some nights he was lights out, as evidenced by the 4 shutouts. I think he'll be okay next season. I don't think he's going to be an all-star goalie for the Red Wings. That's just my thought. But he will be sufficient for the next 2 years for sure. And again, if we can find the right, goalie to split duties with him, that'll be even better, because that means the coaches will have more confidence to give him a rest here and there and make sure he's fresh every time out.
For sure. Delaney, you have anything to add to this, the Husso discussion? What do you think about his play this season and going into next one too?
Yeah, so overall, I'm happy with what I saw from him for the most part. You can't just expect a goalie who's never carried that whole big workload on their own to come in and just be a superstar every single night. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to any player to assume that kind of thing, which you want to be able to assume that kind of thing. And that's the kind of player you're getting, but that's unfortunately not quite how that works. But in terms of save percentage, it looks like he was 44th in the league this year. Ironically tied with the same save percentages Thomas Greiss, both with that 0.896. I wish I never looked at that statistic, but he is 0.002 in front of Peter Mrazek also. So he's in company, that's for sure. And Jordan Bennington had the same save percentage as Peter Mrazek. What a bottom tier of NHL goaltenders. Wow.
You're not making a good case for him, Delaney.
No, I'm not, but I'm also just realizing that save percentage is a little lower than I thought it was. But aside from that, he was great. He did the best that he could given the circumstances. It's not easy mentally or physically for a goalie to go from kind of having an even handoff with a partner or to just, it's all you. And I don't want to say they overplayed him and didn't rest him enough, but it would not have hurt since they weren't making the strongest playoff push imaginable all year. That wasn't necessarily the goal this season. So it might not have hurt to give other goaltenders a chance here and there more than they actually did. Like get Hellberg in, get Nedeljkovic in when he was still up. It doesn't hurt to rest the goalie because they're not that competitive team that needs to go out and win every single game to like stay in the mix for a playoff spot. That wasn't the reality of the season. So I think that if they would have rested him more, given someone else a chance to actually prove that they're that worthy backup instead of just having to throw them in every once in a while and say, okay, be a backup. You're not going to develop a strong backup goaltender if you don't play them.
Yeah.
So I think that was also an issue. So hopefully if they choose to keep Ned around, he'll be that backup. I don't really see them keeping Hellberg around. It doesn't seem like most teams do that with him in particular. So I don't see the Red Wings breaking that pattern. So sorry, Magnus, but might want to grab a suitcase sometime soon here. I don't really know what goaltender the Red Wings might bring in or if they'll ship Ned out. That I don't really have a good guess of right now. That's going to be more of a question after playoffs are over, I think, in case there's moving bits on those playoff teams and stuff like that. You don't know what Steve will have up his sleeve for those postseason moves, especially with goalies. No one was expecting the Husso thing last summer. That was completely out of the blue, it felt like. But going into the season, I know that I was one of the people who was pretty confident it would be a good 1A, 1B situation. Unfortunately, was not right on that one. I think it would have had some potential to have worked out to be a 1A, 1B if Ned's conditioning stint was a little shorter. And then they brought him back up once he got back in a groove a little sooner. Maybe that 1A, 1B could have been established, but he just wasn't on the team to be able to form that 1A, 1B. And you weren't going to have a 1A, 1B with Hellberg and Husso. That I don't think that would work in any world necessarily. They're not close to the same caliber, but overall, I think he had a lot of things to be happy about. I think he was just really overworked, a lot of weight on his shoulders. And as a former goalie, different sport, having a ton of weight put on your shoulders will make you not play as well, even if it's just like a couple more games than you're used to. It's going to be a lot considering it was a whole new team.
True. And the thing is, Hellberg wasn't on the team all season, right? He was on waivers going to the Kraken, going to, what was the other team? He was
Ottawa.
Ottawa, yeah. Had that one really good game there. It's tough. And Delaney, you answered the second part of the question there. I mean, quickly, Devin, Tony, you have anything to add to that? Nedeljkovic and Hellberg. I mean, should the Red Wings bring one of them back? Because I mean, I don't think any of them really established themselves as a real backup to Husso. Devin, what do you think?
I think that in a perfect world, you would sign Magnus Hellberg to be your third string goalie. Because I think that he's proven he can be good in spot starts and he's capable of like giving his team a chance to win. When he had his conditioning stint in Grand Rapids, he looked really good at that level. I don't think he's done anything to prove that he's like a capable everyday NHL goaltender, even as like a backup spot start guy. But I think he's more than capable of being a third string guy that takes the lion's share in the AHL and then, is backup when need be in the NHL. Unfortunately, if this season has taught us anything, it's that people love Magnus Hellberg as a depth option.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's ultimately possible, but like I said, in a perfect world, you would re-sign him to fill that role. Ned, I feel kind of bad about because I'm really encouraged by how he finished this season and how he handled the AHL assignment. I thought when he did come back up to Detroit, he played some phenomenal hockey, some of the best goaltending he's had in a Red Wings uniform. But it's kind of a situation of too little, too late. And also I don't know. I think for him, you want to find an NHL deal and he's, I certainly within his rights to go try to find that. And I think he might even find it from somebody. But I think if you're the Red Wings, this dude spent most of the season in the AHL. I don't think you're going to offer him a $1 million contract to stay in the NHL. I think if anything, you're going to offer him a two-way contract because that's what he was this year. So I think it's just, I don't know if the fit's there. I love Ned. again, I want to, really hammer home that I'm really impressed by how he handled this season. I just don't think the fit's there anymore between Detroit and him.
Yeah. Tony, have anything to add about Nedeljkovic and Hellberg?
I mean, I'm mostly on the same page. I think Nedeljkovic played well at the end of the season, but at the beginning, he was just, not very good at all. He was not tracking the puck well. His rebounds were kicked out left and right, and just was not working well with traffic in front of him. And then, when he came in later after his conditioning stint and time in the AHL, he was fine as a backup. But like Devin said, I think it's a little too late, or too little too late. And there's a bit of risk involved with bringing him back and potentially having the same thing happen again. The Red Wings may be better suited to have a more capable backup that they, acquired via free agency. As for Hellberg, I don't think his chaotic and unorthodox style really meshes well with Detroit's defense. Like, don't get me wrong, the defense is a little better than last year, but they're still not that great. It's something Yzerman said today during his press conference that every area needs to improve. Defense, goalie, forwards, but everywhere needs to improve, including the defense. And because the defense is, can be a little lackluster at times or out of sorts, Hellberg's not really helping him out there with doing, things that they're not expecting. That's why I think Husso was effective this season, is he was consistent, night in, night out. The defense knew exactly what they were getting with him whenever, the play was in the defensive zone. Overall, I think that the Red Wings need another consistent goalie like Husso, at least while the defense develops and while we wait for Sebastian Cossa to make his way up to the NHL.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, there is quite a few backups that you could sign in free agency or even trade for that could potentially fill that backup role. Backups are, I think, easy to get. It's that bona fide starter that's difficult to grab, especially in free agency, because I don't think that happens a lot of the time as those big name goalies go to that point. And when they are there, they're almost the end of their career because they've been on teams for so long for their long-term contracts. So we'll just have to see what Yzerman has in store. All right. Well, now that we've talked about goaltenders, let's get to our first off the rush segment and talk about the coaching. I kind of alluded to it. I kind of spoiled a bit of what I was going to ask, but we'll start with you, Devin. Give Derek Lalonde a letter grade for his freshman season as a coach of the Red Wings.
You know what? I'm going to give him an A-. I don't know if I could have expected much more from him. He certainly, him and his coaching staff improved the team in almost every area. The idea with bringing him in was to fix to at least help the team's defense, and he certainly has done that. I think the team played with some identity that they were lacking in seasons prior. And for a first-time coach in the NHL, I think he handled himself really well. It was good to see him have some fire in his belly that one game against Pittsburgh, I think it was, or whatever, when the one where he got thrown out. But yeah, I mean, there's like a couple of things here and there where it's like, maybe I wish would have handled that better. But that's to be expected from a first-year coach. I can't ding him too much. I'm pretty pleased with how he handled his first season behind the bench.
All right, A-. Delaney, what's Derek Lalonde's letter grade?
Got to be an A- also. Everything keeping in mind that this is his first year as an NHL head coach. That's a big transition to make, even if you have been behind an NHL bench before, which he was down in Tampa. But having it all on your shoulders for the most part, it's a big change. So I think he did really good. I think the team's energy and attitude felt better to watch this season. It didn't feel like there were as many of those, well, you're down by a couple goals, might as well give up now kind of games. So then you're just watching them like, darn, they're not trying anymore. It didn't feel like there were as many of those this season, because even if they were down, it felt like they had a little bit of fight in them. And I got to give that credit to Newsy. I think he played a big role in that, considering I can't recall a time I saw that last season under Blashill. I don't think he was pushing them to have that kind of mentality and to have that fight left in them, especially in the games where it's really close and they tie it up late or have a huge comeback. There wasn't a lot of that last season, and I think he's done lots of good things for the team's mindset, attitude, everything along those lines. So A-.
All right. Tony, you going to make it a clean sweep, A-, or you got a different letter grade for Lalonde?
I'll give him a B+. I agree that the Red Wings didn't collapse as much as they did last year, but for me, at least, it still happened too many times. They did show plenty of fight, and I wish that was more consistent. And then, handling of goalies, is another area for improvement. But yeah, I mean, B+ for your first NHL head coach gig, it's not that bad.
Yeah. All right. As a follow-up to that letter grade, we'll stay with you, Tony. What does he need to do to up it? You got B+, but what does he need to do to get it to that A or higher next season?
I think it just comes with experience, just learning how to pull those strings and find the right approach to how he manages the bench. Again, it was his first year, but also, like, keep in mind, it was his first year. He's going to learn a lot, especially with Bob Bugner alongside of him, who is a veteran coach. So I just think with experience, things are going to get better.
All right, Devin, you gave him an A-. That's pretty good. What does he need to do to bring it to that A or A+?
I like Tony's call out of how he handled the goalies. I think just in general, there was kind of a weird thing where, like, it seemed like once he was done with a player, he was like done with them. There was no, like, you can earn his way back into his good graces. No, like, I think that's part of the reason why Ned ended up in Grand Rapids, because coach was like, yeah, we're not doing this. But the other thing I want to throw out too, because it's like the one thing we definitely miss from the Blashill era, his coaches challenges. Blashill would win those every single time, it seemed like, and I'm pretty sure Lalonde did not win a single one this season. So again, that will come with practice, just like Tony said. But yeah, if you can win at least one coaches challenge next season, I'll be very happy.
And finish off with you, Delaney. What does he need to do to up it to an A or A+ in your mind?
Touching on what Tony had mentioned, the goaltender management, I'd like to see him try to evenly disperse the playing time a little bit. I know it's really easy to get comfortable with the consistent one, but you got to give other goaltenders a chance. And then sometimes in terms of, like, giving players those second chances, it felt at times he was giving the wrong people too many second chances. Like, someone would come out there and do nothing and continue to do nothing, and look, they're still there, instead of, like, calling someone up and letting them have a chance or something. I might be talking about a certain right-handed defenseman that is not Moritz Seider. Maybe call up someone, get a little switch in. But yeah, just, again, it comes with experience. And it seems like in his postseason presser today, he seems like he acknowledges all the areas that need improved, which is huge. And that's part of why he gets an A-. He recognizes that he didn't just do a perfect job and doesn't need to change anything. And that's how he's been all season. So keeping that mindset, resting the goalies, but giving other people chances, second chances, he'll be good.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with Lalonde. I'll give him an A. I'll put it in the middle. I think he did a pretty good job for a first year head coach. And that's what I said about the Red Wings improving. I thought they were much better than last season, for the most part, and just looking like they could become a playoff team was something that you couldn't say last season, and that was good for this year. So I think improvement, he definitely has room to improve, like everyone. I mean, even the best coach in the league needs to do stuff better, because if you don't win the cup, well, obviously you need to do stuff better. So we'll have to see what Lalonde does next season. And I think, overall, just like all of you said, experience. And that's with anything. When you're a rookie, your next year is usually better because you just look at it and fix things that need to be better. So. All right, well, before we get to our second half of the show and back to our comment corner, which we've got a couple questions. So again, thanks for the questions below in the comments. We of course got way more than 2, but we picked a couple there. And that Lalonde question did come from the comment section as well. So thanks for the inspiration on those questions there. But before we can move on, we got to pay the bills and talk about our sponsor, Hockeypedia at thehockeywriters.com. Great resource with a bunch of different, lots of information, player pages. You know, if you want to know about draft picks, the upcoming draft, we got a page that's updated every day with profiles, with, anything with the draft. Take a look at that page. And throughout the playoffs, there's going to be updates as well throughout Hockeypedia. So make sure you're checking that out. There's a link below in the description. Well, let's get moving on with the show and talk comment corner. And our first question comes from our friend Paradox Destroyer. Hi, Paradox. Thanks for another question. We're going to talk about defense with this one. And talking about improvement on the defense. We'll start with you, Devin. Now, the question is, do you envision Steve Yzerman trading for a solid right-handed defenseman during the offseason?
Maybe he trades for one, maybe he doesn't. I do think that there's going to be some at least some intention of addressing and adding some consistency on the blue line. 4 spots already locked in. You got Wallman, Zator, Sherratt, and Mata already locked down. I think, at least in my opinion, Edvinsson's like a virtual lock to have another spot on that blue line. And then that leaves 1 or 2 more spots, right? And one of those spots is an extra, depth spot. So, maybe a prospect comes up and then a prospect kind of announces themselves and it doesn't even matter if they go out and get somebody. And maybe they decide they don't they want the insurance policy. They want somebody that they know is good. Maybe they go out and get a Radko Gudas. Maybe there's somebody who becomes available for one reason or another that they do decide to go out and target and trade. I think, to kind of answer the question, but not really, they are going to be looking to add in almost every area. Like Tony said earlier, Yzerman said, where do we need to get better? Where does the team need to get better? Every area. So that includes the blue line, right? So I think they'll be looking and trying to find ways to improve the status of their blue line, whether that's adding, like the question asks, or just having guys like Edvinsson and Zator continue to develop and get better and elevate the blue line that way.
Yeah, I think Yzerman's going to do his due diligence for sure. I mean, there's going to be guys that could be available from a bunch of teams that didn't make the playoffs, or they're wanting to change the look of the team. And there's a few teams out there that are trying to do that this offseason. So we'll see what Yzerman does. Move over to you, Tony. What do you think? Do you think Yzerman goes out and grabs a solid right-hand defenseman in the offseason there?
I mean, it's definitely possible, but I think I'd prioritize a top 6 forward over a second pair right D via trade. The free agency class for right D isn't very strong either. Devin mentioned Radko Gudas. There's also Damon Severson, Matt Dumba, Scott Mayfield, John Kleinberg. Not players you're going to be overly excited about signing, but effective players nonetheless. Mm-hmm. If they do go for a trade, I'll throw out a few names. Calgary may be, cleaning house. And if they do and want to rebuild in some manner or reload, Rasmus Andersson would be an outstanding acquisition, but he'd be very costly.
Yeah.
But Andersson on a pair with Edvinsson would be a lot to say, but a very impressive second pair for the Red Wings. Other names, Chris Tanev on the Flames, Jeff Petrie on the Pittsburgh Penguins, might be available as cap dumps as their teams reload. That would come at a lower cost, not necessarily the team giving up a draft pick for the Red Wings to take the player off their hands, but certainly a lower cost than you'd expect for a player of their caliber. Both are signed for just next season. So if they become available, that might not be a bad idea just to have a stopgap player come in and man the second pair next season. Otherwise, again, the free agent class is fine for a temporary solution, or moving a prospect like Albert Johansson to the right side might suffice. So that's just my take.
Yeah, there's a lot of options out there, I think, for right hand. I mean, that's an interesting one. I think because he's been a little bit, his injuries come back in this past season. But yeah, he's not a big risk. I mean, it's not like he's signed long term. He's got one more season and then doesn't work out, he's gone. So not high cost really for trading for him either. Delaney, finishing off with you, what do you think about this question? Do you see Yzerman going after a solid right-hand defenseman in the offseason here?
Yeah, I don't see it being priority number one going into the offseason. I wouldn't be shocked if he did it, but I don't think it's like an urgent at the top of the list kind of thing. And the free agent right-hand defenseman market is a little spotty. There's a couple names that jump out, but there's a familiar name on the list, good old Troy Stecher. Where hasn't he played this season? That I do not know, but he's back on that list. And then another name that caught my eye, I doubt that he'd be going anywhere, especially if they win the cup, but Connor Clifton with the Boston Bruins, he's on that list as a unrestricted free agent coming up here. So that wouldn't be the end of the world. That would be maybe something, but I doubt, especially if they win a cup, I don't really think he's going anywhere. But yeah, I don't think it's like priority number one, as I was saying, but I wouldn't be shocked if he figured something out, even if it's not a free agency move and it's grabbing someone else, trading some picks around or something. Lord knows that they have the picks to trade. So maybe. I'm not going to say for sure yes or no on that one, but I don't think I think he'd want a solid goal scorer or maybe a solid backup goaltender before he'd go in for a second pair right D.
Yeah, the thing is about it is that you've got prospects, like you guys mentioned, Johansson's coming up. He could potentially move to the other side and take that. And you also got just the draft coming up too, which is, I think there's a couple defensemen that actually could potentially come into the league right away and play. Reinbacher's one of them. I think he could potentially be in the NHL. Not saying you want to rush him there, but I think he has that type of pedigree that could potentially play in his first season. So, and they've got that Islanders pick around that range where it looks like that's where Reinbacher is going to go. So, something to keep in mind. Okay, well, let's move on to our next question on Comment Corner here and return to our old friend Don, who asked a couple questions last episode. And we'll start with Delaney on this one. Who is your top Red Wing for this past season? So I'm guessing like MVP or your like the top performer. What do you think from this past season?
Oh boy, that's kind of a multi-dimensional question. My gut wants to say Michael Rasmussen, even though he didn't get that full season in. What we did see from him is nothing to turn your nose up at. It was an awesome season. I'm totally bummed he didn't get a full year. He had 10 goals, 19 assists for 29 total points through 56 games compared to his 27 points from last season. Like, if he would have been able to keep going and play that full season, he might have gotten a 20-goal season under his belt. And that is very impressive in and of itself. And missing him from the lineup marked a noticeable decline in the Red Wings offense, in my opinion, at least. Like, once he got hurt and came out of that lineup, you saw the offense was lacking. So that shows how big of a part of the team that he was for the games that he did play, and shows how much he improved. So if we're looking for a most improved player, or I'm not sure exactly which dimension of top Red Wing he means, but most improved has to be Rasmussen. And top overall, Dylan Larkin. You can't really beef with that one too much at the moment. He had a career season. It was an awesome year for him. So can't take that away from him. So most improved, Michael Rasmussen, MVP, Dylan Larkin.
I'm sure Dylan Larkin's probably on a lot of lists as MVP. So let's go that direction. Let's go most improved, or you could pick both. We'll open that up. Devin, what do you think? Top Red Wing for this season?
Yeah, I kind of at some point here want to go back and rewatch all those little preview episodes we did where we looked at all the players and kind of set expectations for all of them, so I can really see who met expectations and who fell short. And when I know like what I said, what the expectations were, I distinctly remember saying I wanted Dylan Larkin to have a career best season. This was the most talented team he's ever had with the Red Wings. And by golly, that kid had a career best season. Most goals, most points, 79 points in 80 games. So just shy of a point per game pace. I think, like Delaney said, I don't know if you can really, in terms of who's like the MVP, who's the top Red Wing, I don't know if you can really make an argument for anybody other than Dylan Larkin this season. I think he carried this team. And his point totals and all of his metrics and whatnot, I think point in that direction. And also just the fact that like how he handled himself this season, with the contract stuff looming over him, his best friend gets dealt at the trade deadline. He had a lot of stuff going on in the background this season, and he still handled it like the captain he is, and still had a career best season. So I think Larkin's the slam dunk top Red Wing this season. As for most improved, if we have to keep it team based, I am going to. It's got to be Ras. Not to like completely repeat what Delaney said, but like she said, I think Ras is looking at a 40-point season if he stays healthy the whole way through. He won 51% of his faceoffs this season. Had 18 takeaways to 8 giveaways, so he's really starting to come into his own as a two-way player. Was a plus player for the first time in his career, just +2, but a plus player nonetheless. It just seemed like whenever he was on the ice, good things happened. And even going back just 2 seasons ago, that's not what Michael Rasmussen was. Lalonde said it during his availability today. Delaney said it 2 minutes ago. You could feel the difference when Rasmussen left this lineup. And I think that's a sign of a really important player. So for him to go from being like, yeah, he was the dude they picked in the first round in 2017 to now where he's like a key member of this team and you can feel it when he's not in the lineup. I think that's a huge jump for him. And I think there's many players I'm excited to see what they do next season. He is probably top 5, maybe even top 3. And it's all because of how he performed this season.
For sure. And who knows, like you just said, who knows what he would have done if he was healthy, what type of point totals, right? So, yeah. Tony, finishing up with you. I had a top Red Wing. And if you want to throw in the most improved, go ahead.
I'll be quick. Ditto everything Devin said about Dylan Larkin. Yeah. Plus, he's trying to plan a wedding at the same time. Like, come on, guys. That's
right.
He's busy.
As for Michael Rasmussen, can we make this a thing like Moose? Like, can we make
Moose?
But for most improved, we gotta give Jake Wallman some love. He was much better at both ends of the ice this season, and he went from like we've talked about previously on the show, kind of a throw-in in the trade for Nicoletti to being a legit top 4 defenseman, and great chemistry with Moritz Seider. So that was something that we all love to see this year.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Wallman was a guy I don't think anyone thought he was going to become a top 4 defenseman, that's for sure. If Philip Hronek was still on the team, I'd probably throw him in there as the most improved, but he's not. I mean, only Matto. I mean, yes, he wasn't on the team last season, but comparatively from where he was playing as being more of a depth guy, I mean, I think he was a pretty big part of the Red Wings this season. So I'll throw his name out there as well. All right, before we end the show, let's get to our last off the rush segment. And this is a quick question. We've mentioned Edvinsson's name in this one, but we'll mention him again. Tony, between Edvinsson and Kasper next season, who do you believe will be the most impactful by the time we're talking next year?
Edvinsson. I think he'll be in the top 4 easily next year for defenseman. Yeah, simple as that.
All right, Edvinsson. Devin, what do you think between Edvinsson and Kasper who's the most impactful when we're talking again this time next season?
Yeah, ditto what Tony said. I think that Kasper will be on his way to getting to that point, but he won't be there quite yet. Edvinsson's already played 9 games in the NHL. He's already on his way there. I think that a year from now we'll be chomping at the bit thinking about where Edvinsson will be 2 years from now.
Yeah. I know they're 2 different positions, but I mean it's kind of, but I'm just saying rookies. So Delaney, what do you think between Edvinsson and Kasper, who's the most impactful next season?
Ditto everything everyone else is saying. Simon Edvinsson, we have a lot of strong centers, especially if Rasmussen is back and healthy. So him and Larkin can carry that impact. We have kind of a slack in defense still. So having Simon Edvinsson slot into that top 4 and making you cringe a little less when you look at a lineup and you're like, oh, that's the second line. I think it's going to be Edvinsson.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think Kasper, I mean, he had a great first game, but who knows? He may not even play a full season with the Red Wings. He'll probably be in Grand Rapids. But who knows? I mean, he looked really good in his first NHL game, so he could potentially be on the team. But like you guys said, the center depth is pretty strong. So where is he going to be in the lineup is what the question will be, right? So
yeah,
we'll have to see.
hopefully
It's gonna be fun.
Cap is back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still can't believe that.
Yeah, we'll see what else Yzerman has up his sleeve too. I mean, he could be trading some things and get, who knows? I mean, you never know. It could have also a guy named Connor Bedard on the team too, but that's a bit off. I mean,
Yeah.
the odds are not big. So.
Yeah, I've got my 5.4% chance of Adam Fantilli still. So
Yeah.
I
Adam
wasn't
Fantilli would be a
totally
pretty
wrong.
good one too.
Was not totally wrong. There is a percentage chance that doesn't start with a 0.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, that's another episode of the Grind Line. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Delaney, for joining me. We've got a lot more episodes to come in the off season. We'll be doing a whole bunch. We got the Grindies coming up as well. We've got to do those. We've got to do the award show. So I mean, that's going to be fun. We got so much stuff going on. We're not stopping the show for the off season. We got so much to talk about. So yeah, we'll hang out with us next week. We'll have another episode. Thanks everyone for joining us. Keep the comments coming in the comments section. Keep those questions coming. We'll keep doing the comment corners. We've done it for the last 3 weeks because keep having questions. So pop them in there. And we'll see you next time on another episode of The Grind Line.